What's happening, everybody? Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Ranking the Albums. Today we're going to take a look at the studio albums of perhaps my favorite singer of all time, Mr. Ian Gillan. All right, but we're not going to take a look at Deep Purple. Okay, we've already done that. All right, we're just basically going to look at what many consider his solo album. So the Ian Gillan Band, the Gillan Band, and Ian Gillan Solo. I have almost everything. There's a couple I'm missing. There's a couple I have not heard, so I'm just going to kind of like omit that. That's later stuff. There's one notable one in particular that I've heard, never had because it was always way too expensive. But just before I got on here to do this show, I actually was able to order myself a copy. So it'll be en route like over the next couple weeks. But for today, I'll just kind of talk about it. I won't show it. All right, and we'll kind of go through the catalog from my least favorite to my favorite. All right, some of these are kind of hard to judge because I really dig him a lot. As you know, love the guy. Been a fan forever. Just, you know, and again, I know he doesn't sing like he used to, but man, back in the day when he was younger, he was a force to be reckoned with. I still like his vocals, the elder statesman Ian Gillan, right? You know, the screams are kind of gone, but I still think he does a good job at what he does, right? So, hope everybody out there is doing okay in this. You know, you lose track of time. How long have we been in lockdown now? It's almost May. That's crazy. Seems like we've been doing this forever. Just the days just kind of weed into the next. Hope everybody out there is healthy and safe. I've been dealing with crazy allergies for the last week or so. It seems like this time of year they just kind of kill me for a couple of weeks, and this year no different. So if you hear a little scratchiness of the voice, that's kind of what's going on. Just started taking some heavy duty allergy medication yesterday to try and get the congestion and the scratchy throat and the clogged ears, all that kind of stuff. You know how it goes, right? If you're an allergy sufferer, you know. I never had allergies growing up as a kid. Never. Just the last like year or two, all of a sudden, boom. That's what happens when you get past 50, I guess, right? Anyway. All right, so let's get started here. So I'm going to start out, like I said, at the bottom. I'm going to go with my least favorite by a mile. Released in 1992, but it's actually, we're going to do a couple kind of sort of like compilation type things here as well. It was recorded or released in 1992, but contains recordings from throughout the late 60s and the early mid 70s. I'm talking about Chirkazoo and Other Stories, which this is like a 3-on-1, so it's that bad boy right there. Okay, right there. Yeah, it's just kind of Ian doing some like good time old style rock and roll and pop stuff and acoustic stuff, and just doesn't really do much for me. You know, I know, I get it. It's a collection of cool rarities and things for some people if you're a real big fan, but I don't know. I like hearing Ian rock out, man. It's just, for me, it's just not a side to Ian Gillan that I care to listen to. So, cool curiosity for a couple listens, yeah, but is it something I go back to? Never. Same thing kind of with this one from 1988, coming in next, Accidentally on Purpose, which he actually did with Roger Glover. As kind of the two guys wanting to kind of go away. I think they recorded these on one of the Caribbean islands, if I'm not mistaken, as a way to kind of get that kind of feel that they were having at the island. So it's very kind of breezy, pop, hints of reggae type of thing. Yeah, there's some catchy tunes on here, and you get the fun factor that they were having recording it. Is it something that I listen to much, if at all? Not really. Have it in the collection as a curiosity piece. Do I really like it? Debatable. Debatable. Next up, we're going to go to 2006. We're going to go to Gillan's Inn. Basically, this was a fun little project that he put together to kind of go and revisit a whole bunch of tunes from his past with a lot of his buddies. So, you know, you got reworkings of some Purple stuff, some Sabbath stuff, all sorts of things, cover tunes, all sorts of fun stuff on here. It's fun. This, for me, was probably the, you know, away from Deep Purple, this was like his last kind of gasp at really trying to put something, you know, on his own, big and fiery together. And it's fun. There's some good stuff in here. You know, all sorts of guitar players on here. You know, Iommi's on here. And who else? You know, John Lord, Ian Pace, Satriani, Ronnie James Dio, you know, Jeff Healey, all sorts of guys on here. So it's fun. It's fun. Like I said, I think that was, you know, he's done I think another solo album or two since then, but they've been relatively low-key things. Next up, I'm going to go, what year was this? No, hold on, it's not next. I'm getting out of order here. Hold on. Next up, Naked Thunder. Where is that? Naked Thunder was from 1990. All right, so that's right there. Pretty good album. This album and this album, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, pretty rocking. So, of course, this was during the time where he finds himself. Was he officially back in Purple yet for Battle Rages on? It was either right before, I think it was right before he rejoined. So he released these two kick-ass solo albums that are really pretty heavy. You know, maybe not the most memorable fare in the world, but he's got some, you know, killer guitar playing by a guy named Steve Morris, not Morse, Steve Morris, doing some very, you know, metallic riffing throughout and crazy soloing, and Ian shrieking up a storm. I dig it. It's a good album. Again, maybe the songs aren't the greatest songs in the world, but Ian getting back to doing some pretty heavy stuff, it's worthwhile for that. All right, next up. Okay, I'm going to stick around the same 1991. So Toolbox. I find this album even heavier, and it's got some of the best screaming Ian Gillan in a while, and might just be the last album where you're going to hear Ian really doing that. All right, so if you prefer that really aggressive, almost violent side to Gillan's vocal style, you know, circa those classic Deep Purple albums, right? Also, you know, the Born Again album with Black Sabbath, if you want to hear, and the Gillan albums as well. If you want to hear that style, Ian screaming up a storm on some very heavy material, then you need to check out Toolbox from 1991. Pretty heavy album. I dig it. It's a good album. All right, now, back to 1976, his first big release after, you know, leaving Deep Purple and taking some time off. Child in Time from 1976. Kind of an interesting band, right? So, not fully returning to heavy rock, you know, at the time. Jazz fusion and prog, fairly popular, right? So, some of the guys that he hired in the band, Ray Fenwick and a couple other dudes, big into kind of the jazz fusion scene, right? So they brought a different flavor to the music. Ian not really sure what he wants to do. Do I dive back into heavy rock? Do I kind of play along what these guys want to do something progressive? So they kind of like met in the middle. And there's some like hard rock on here. There's some, you know, a little bit of R&B flavors. Definitely some jazz fusion going on. Some kind of prog going on. So, you know, Lay Me Down, pretty heavy track. You Make Me Feel So Good. My Baby Loves Me, pretty notable song. They actually do a very atmospheric, kind of jazzy, proggy, bluesy rendition of Child in Time from Deep Purple. Pretty cool here. And then finishing off, it's got a song called Let It Slide, which is like, 10, 12 minutes long. Kind of like their take on like Pink Floyd. Pretty cool. Pretty atmospheric and proggy, you know, kind of mellow and dreamy and what have you. So it's a pretty good album. I think the Ian Gillan Band, that's what this was released under, did 3 albums, 3 studio, 1 live album under the Ian Gillan Band, probably suffered in terms of overall perception and popularity where they kind of lack a direction, all right? And, you know, people seeing Ian as, you know, a hard rock, heavy rock singer, right? And that kind of was not, all right? Nor were the albums that came after it, but they had elements of that, right? All right, where are we going next? 1982, we're going to go with Magic. By the way, in case you're interested, and I'll do this as we're going forward, these are the, who released these? The Edsel remasters, okay? So each one comes in a slipcase. All right, so there's the original album cover. And then the slipcase, right, it's got, you know, a smaller picture, got Ian there, but more importantly on the side, each one contains like a section of a frame of a photograph of Ian, and then when you buy them all and you stack them on the shelves, you actually see Ian's face. And I'll show you that when we're all done, and I think many of you have noted that and seen it on my shelves in the background. You can say, well, who's that face over there? That's Ian Gillan, right? So, all right, next up, to 1982, Magic. All right, this was the final Gillan Band album. Here you've got, you know, along with Colin Towns, and all right, let me as well tell you who the lineup is, right? Colin Towns on keyboards. Where are we here? Bear with me a second. Magic, there we go. And they were on Virgin Records, by the way. So here you had in the band Colin Towns on keyboards, who was with him in the Ian Gillan Band. Yannick Gers on guitar, all right, who we now know has been an Iron Maiden for a million years. John McCoy on bass guitar. Okay, John McCoy also played for many, many years with the late Bernie Tormé, okay, who was also in Gillan. We'll talk about him in a minute. And Mick Underwood on drums. Okay, so this particular album, like I said, the last studio album from the Gillan Band before he jumped ship to go join Black Sabbath, and then eventually the Deep Purple reunion. Some good songs on here. Bluesy Blue Sea, I always dug it a lot. Caught in the Trap, it's a pretty heavy album, actually. What else? Driving Me Wild is great. Demon Driver, kick-ass pile driving song. What's the Matter, another really strong track. What else? What else? Living for the City, okay, which is obviously a remake, done very well here. A strong album. I dig this album. All right, that's I think actually all the Gillan Band, not the Ian Gillan Band, but the Gillan Band albums are very, very strong, very underrated. And I think, you know, especially folks here in the U.S. at the time, those were only available as very expensive imports. So unfortunately, you know, with a lot of the Deep Purple offshoot bands, you know, you had Whitesnake, you know, the main ones, Whitesnake and Rainbow. You know, for the most part, Rainbow definitely, Whitesnake up to a point, had most of their albums released here pretty regularly. It was kind of hard to get these Gillan albums. So unfortunately, a lot of U.S. hard rock and metal fans were not exposed to these guys, which is a real shame. They didn't really come over here and tour, and I think they could have been just as big as the other two, right? Because some may argue that some of the material on these Gillan albums are even superior to like those early mid-'80s, you know, the early '80s Rainbow things, right? You know, we're not talking about the Dio era, but like, you know, I think some of these Gillan albums are just as strong as like Down to Earth, you know, Straight Between the Eyes, Difficult to Cure, you know, even some of those early Whitesnake albums. They're that good, folks. All right, so next up, we're going to go to 19, and let me give you the side of the Magic. All right, so that's the side, and show you what the whole thing looks like. All right, next up, we're going to go with Future Shock from 1981. Okay. Pretty cool album cover, right? Caricature of the band there. There we see Ian's eye, right? What do we got on here? You got the title track is very good. What else? New Orleans, Bite the Bullet. No Laughing in Heaven, great song. And I like, you know, Ian has always been very famous for like kind of like these tongue-in-cheek lyrics, and they're all over the place on here. So here, for all of these other Gillan albums, okay, we've got a slightly different lineup here. So here on Future Shock, and the only real difference is you got a guy on lead guitar named Bernie Tormé, who joined with the Mr. Universe album, okay, and that's joining Colin Towns, John McCoy, and Mick Underwood on lead guitar. Bernie Tormé would bring like a completely different style to the band. So he was, God, how do you describe the late, great Bernie Tormé? He played a Stratocaster. He was a big proponent of the tremolo bar. He had sort of kind of like a punk meets Jimi Hendrix style with lots of crazy soloing. He had a weird tone, which was kind of like loud, feedback driven, and nasally. All right. And it just totally worked with this band. Very different sort of guitar player. All right. Somewhat of a bluesy style, but he, like I said, he had this kind of punk sort of energy that came with him, which was really, really different. And this is a really good album, a really strong album. And if you get these Edsel remasters, all sorts of bonus tracks and things like that. So I always enjoyed the Future Shock album. Next up, we're going to go for number 6. Let me find it here. Do I have it out here somewhere? Do I have it? No, I do not. It's down in this pile. All right, we're going to go with Scarabus from 1977. That's actually this guy right here. Okay. You may have had a different release in your neck of the woods, depending on, you know, which issue you got. But title track, really good. If you listen very carefully, if you're a fan of the Black Sabbath Born Again album, the title track, you can actually hear some familiar passages. All right, back to, I believe it was Disturbing the Priest. Pretty sure it was Disturbing the Priest is actually some of the sections of that song are taken from Scarabus. And when you listen to Scarabus, you're like, wait a second, I know that, right? kind of interesting. What else? Twin Exhausted is good. Mercury High, another strong album. Pre-release, Madeline. You know, on these two albums, which I'm going to talk about the other one too in a minute. Again, kind of like a collision of styles. Again, this is the Ian Gillan Band. The Ian Gillan Band. And you got the guys in the band trying to push forth this kind of jazz fusion-y thing. Because remember, at the time, you got, you know, Mahavishnu Orchestra and Brand X and Lifetime and, you know, Weather Report and, you know, Return to Forever. I forget who else I mentioned here. So you got that kind of meeting up with Ian's kind of heavy rock sensibilities. But it actually kind of works. Right, it's pretty rockin'. It's definitely kind of proggy, definitely kind of jazzy in spots, but I don't think the public kind of understood what was going on. But it's interesting to listen to these albums back now today and really appreciate them for what they are. And I'll tell you, like in the last couple of years, I have really started to enjoy these Ian Gillan Band albums more than I did, say, a decade ago. All right, next up, we're going to go with a lot of people were doing this at the time, a double album. One full album, one full LP of all new studio tracks, and one LP live. So it's called Double Trouble. All right. Both the studio tracks and the live stuff, pretty top notch. The studio stuff, I'll rip your spine out. Right. Pretty aggressive here. All right. This is pretty heavy stuff. Men of War, killer album, killer song. Nightmare, Born to Kill. All right, just really strong material. The whole album is really good. The live stuff, you know, you got a bunch of live tracks from previous albums. You know, No Easy Way, Trouble, Mutually Assured Destruction, which is amazing on here. No Laughing in Heaven, New Orleans, If You Believe Me. Great stuff. Highly recommend Double Trouble. All right, next up, we're going to go with, for number 4, Clear Air Turbulence. Double Trouble was 1981, in case you wanted to see the... Got to remember to do that, Pete. Got to remember to do that. That's what the full cover looks like. All right, and if you put it back in the slipcase, you get not much. A lock of Ian's very long hair. Not quite there yet. Well, if this lockdown continues anymore, I may be looking like Ian Gillan before you know it. Right? Not that it would be so bad. I don't know about, you know... I might have to, when I'm on video calls for the day job, I might have to do a little something, but whatever. 1977, Clear Air Turbulence. All right. This is actually my favorite of all the Ian Gillan Band releases. Basically, because there's a couple songs on here that just absolutely kick ass. All right. Moneylender. Money. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Oh, just such a great song. I love it. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. You got Angel Manchetti, however they say that. Clear Air Turbulence, the title track. All right. 5 Moons, Over the Hill, Good Hand Liza. It's a good album. It's a good album. I think it's probably out of the 3 Ian Gillan Band albums, it's actually the harder rockin' of the 3. All right. But I dig it. I like its little kind of jazz fusion flourishes, which I'm a jazz fusion fan, so I don't mind that at one bit. And I think Ian's singing up a storm on it, most importantly, as he is on all these albums. All right, so now for me, probably, you know, the cream of the crop, I guess, and they were all kind of put together right around the same time, or close to it. So coming in number 3, the one that I don't have that I really like, but I just ordered, is Gillan from 1978. So originally only released in Japan, Australia, and New Zealand, I believe. Did fairly well over there, but, you know, struggled to get released anywhere else. I think it was available in the UK as a very expensive import. And then partially through, you know, after the recording of the album, the lineup changed, okay. In comes Bernie Torme, right? And they go get a recording contract with Virgin, all right? And they decide to basically go and re-record a bunch of those songs that would later show up on the Mr. Universe album, which was the follow-up. So if you don't have the Gillan Japanese album release, probably not the end of the world, although some of the versions of songs that you know from Mr. Universe do sound a little bit differently because it's a different band playing them. And there are, I think, 4 tracks, if I remember correctly, 4 tracks on the original Japanese release that are not on any other album. So worth having for those, and they're good songs. It's a pretty heavy album, very well produced, just the band just, you know, sounding fresh and energetic. And I think, you know, people who missed that kind of heavy factor that those Mark II era Deep Purple albums brought. and were a little puzzled by the Ian Gillan Band stuff. We're all over that, okay? And then they would follow, you know, they would, obviously, like I said, they would reconvene, new band, new recording contract, Mr. Universe comes out, and whammo, right? We'll get to that in a minute. So that comes into number 3. Number 2, I'm going to go from 1980, Glory Road, which for some people might be the best. I had a hard time deciding between this and my number 1, because I love them both. They're both really good. Today I went with the other one. If you ask me a couple weeks from now, I might change my mind a little bit. But Glory Road, man, has got some sizzling tracks. No Easy Way, Sleeping on the Job, you know, On the Rocks, Unchain Your Brain, crazy song. If you love the early British, the new wave of British heavy metal stuff, you'd love this stuff. If you listen to nothing else I say this week, if you've never listened to the Gillan Band, and you like late 70s, early 80s heavy hard rock, all right, and you love the new wave of British heavy metal stuff, and you're a Deep Purple fan, you need to get this stuff. I'm telling you. Just go to Amazon or wherever you buy your CDs and order the handful of Gillan albums. Trust me, you will not regret it. Some fantastic stuff on here. If you get this the Edsel reissue, you also get a cool bonus. All right, I was kind of contemplating listing this separately, but I figured, Disc 2, this is a 2-disc set. Disc 2 has a special fan club only released, which was called For Gillan Fans Only. Okay, and here you get the entire, 12 tracks, all right, of these kind of leftovers and little funny things and alternate takes and stuff, whatever. It's some cool stuff on there as well. So it's worth having For Gillan Fans Only, all right? And you get it with the Glory Road. Man, this is some great songs on here. Great songs on here. Are You Sure? Ugh, man, just going up and down. Nightmare. Ugh. Yeah, Glory Road. Next week could be my favorite. It's, you know what it is? There's a couple songs on my number 1, Mr. Universe. Oh, hold on. Got to show the whole package, all right? So there, I believe, was the original album cover. Okay. And then on the side, you get most of Ian's face. Okay, peeking out there. Number 1, I'm going to go with 1979's Mr. Universe. I don't know. I got a thing for this album, and I'm an enormous fan of the title track. All right, so that's what the album looked like. All right, you got Ian's Other Eye. So here you've got, you know, some very favorite songs of mine. You got the title track, which is killer. It's heavy. It's proggy. It's got some blistering Bernie Torme guitar work on it. Great Ian Gillan screaming on it. Puget Sound, killer anthem. Right, great. Secret of the Dance. She Tears Me Down, okay? Roller, heavy song. What else? Second Sight, killer. Vengeance, heavy. It's a heavy album. It's really good. Like I said, you know, if you only got money for 2 right now, go out and get Glory Road and Mr. Universe. If you got money for more, go get the rest of them. They're that good. So there you have it. All right, that's my kind of ranking of the Gillan discography, Ian Gillan Band, Ian Gillan Solo, and Gillan. Mr. Universe, number 1. Number 2, Glory Road. Number 3, Gillan. Japanese, all right, the Japanese album. Number 4, Clear Air Turbulence by the Ian Gillan Band. Number 5, Double Trouble. Number 6, Scarabus from the Ian Gillan Band. Number 7, Future Shock. Number 8, Magic. Number 9, Child in Time, Ian Gillan Band. Number 10, Toolbox, Ian Gillan Solo. Number 11, Naked Thunder, Ian Gillan Solo. Number 12, Gillan's In, Ian Gillan Solo. Number 13, Accidentally on Purpose, Ian Gillan and Roger Glover. And number 14, Cherkazoo and Other Stories, Ian Gillan Solo. There you have it. All right, like I said, there's a couple that I'm missing. You want to know exactly what I'm missing? I'll tell you. I am missing Dreamcatcher from 1997. Never heard it. I heard it's a pretty mellow album. And then One Eye to Morocco from 2009 is the last one he did. I don't have that. I've never heard. I heard that's more like kind of like acoustic stuff. So I've kind of not been interested in those. So, but this stuff, kick ass. Wow. 25 minutes almost. I did not expect to do that, but, you know, he's my favorite singer, so he deserves it. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on the mighty YouTube. What's coming up, you might say? Tomorrow, we got lots of metal coming up tomorrow. Jack Toledano and I are going to be doing a top 10 song show on Iced Earth. All right, I'm also doing a top 10 song show with Steve Killer, Rock Fantasy, and Metal Blade Records founder, Brian Slagle. We're going to be doing our top 10 songs for Amon Amarth. Okay, And then I got some other special shows coming up. We might, for a little bit, slow down a little bit on the Ranking the Album shows, although I still have a bunch. I want to do Rory Gallagher soon. I want to do Saga soon. There's a bunch of other ones that I want to get to, like, relatively soon, and I'll get to them. But I want to do some other fun stuff. So I want to do that our Fallen Guitar Heroes show. And that's going to be like a cool 30-minute show where we're going to talk about some of the, notable guitar heroes that we've lost over the years. Whether they died really young or whether they just passed away later in lives. We really miss them. Who a lot of the culprits are. I'm not going to go over every single one of them, all right? But the ones that mean a lot to me, or have meant a lot to me, we're going to talk about them, reminisce about them. I made a list the guitars I like seeing them play, my favorite songs and albums, any live stories I want to tell you of seeing them live. So that's coming up also real soon. Also coming up, I'm going to do my top, 10 or 20 or 25 70s pop favorites, okay? A lot of people have been asking, Pete, we know you secretly like 70s pop, so what are some of your real favorite pop tunes from the 70s? So I'm going to do that as well, okay? A little deviating from the normal stuff. And then, by popular demand, I've been pretty quiet on it, but by popular demand, I'm going to start a series that's going to run for a while. Okay, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to do it daily. I might do it daily, or I might do it a couple times a week. I don't know yet. But I am going to start from 1965 and go forward. And each day, I'm going to tell you what my favorite album release was for each year. All right. So there have been a couple of people asking for this. I have noted it, okay? I kept my mouth shut on it, right? Now people are like, oh, I guess Pete doesn't want to do that because he doesn't respond. Guys, you got to understand, I can't respond to everything. And a lot of things I got to keep under wraps a little bit because I got so much percolating on my end, right? So that is coming. I may start that fairly soon. So we're going to go from 1965, which is basically, kind of the modern rock like we know it, right, of the last 50 plus years. And I'm in, kind of when the Beatles and the Stones and the Kinks and the Who all kind of started. That's where we're going to start from. And I'm going to go, whether I do it every day or whether I do it, we'll see how it goes. And they'll be quick videos. Okay. So we're talking, 5 minutes or less probably. And I'll tell you, okay, the year was 1965. This was my favorite album release that year. Could be a rock album, could be a jazz album, could be a metal album, prog album, whatever. Going to kind of leave it open. All right. And I'm going to tell you what my favorite was and why from that year. And then in the comments below, you guys will tell everybody else what your favorite album release was in that calendar year, okay? So that should be kind of fun, all right? So visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. So we'll see you guys, if not later today. Definitely a lot over this weekend. I also hope to do a Monsters Den this weekend as well. So stay tuned for that. And a lot coming, right? So be good, be safe. Catch you on the flip side. Bye-bye.